Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I am excited today to have Candice Rosen, RN, BS, MSW, and CHC on today. She is a pioneer in glucose monitoring for improved health and weight loss. She created the Pancreatic Nutritional Program, data-driven fueling program in 2008, and she is the author of 2 books outlining her beliefs and programs, The Pancreatic Oath and Forget Dieting. Candice has spent her life's work focused on improving the wellness of both her clients and her community. Her experiences as a clinical therapist and as a nurse gave her a unique perspective when it comes to nutrition counseling. As the former chair of healthcare initiatives for Chicago's Sister Cities International Program, she worked to advocate preventative medicine, improve disability access, and promote maternal and infant health. She continues to bring awareness to the global obesity and diabetes epidemics, and she is the mother of 4 children and grandmother to 1. Welcome, Candice. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. I'm so honored to be on your show. Thank you.
Awesome. We're so glad to have you. And where I wanted to start was you have a great, I'll call it a quote because it's your statement basically that you tell your clients. And that is, you are always one decision away from a totally different life. I just love that.
So true.
So true. So true. So basically, let's start there and let's elaborate. What do you mean by that?
Well, we don't have a lot of choice in a lot of things that happen to us in our life, right? I mean, we've all experienced this situation with COVID and all, but the one thing that I tell my clients is that you do have a choice about what you put in your mouth. And I'm a firm believer in the practice of self-help, that you're your primary caregiver and your physician is your secondary caregiver. So you can make choices about what you put in your mouth that affect not only your weight, but also your health.
I love it. And I remember one of the first conversations we had, you said that to me, like, you're your primary provider and your physician is your secondary. And I was like, you know what? I mean, I totally 100% believe that. Have never heard that before. Like just stated that way. And it's true. And people, that's going to blow people's minds.
Yeah. Well, you know yourself better than anybody else. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I talk to my clients all the time. They don't like to hear some of the things that I say. Number one, your mouth is not supposed to have a party at every meal. You eat to sustain life, to fuel your organic machine. So you fuel your body with what it needs, not what it wants, based on stress, a taste you have, marketing by food corporations, or a friend or a loved one's expectations. So there are so many people today that hear that they don't have choice, that they were born that way or whatever. And I feel that it's very empowering to know that you do have choices. And I think a big problem for people is a lack of knowledge and understanding about how their organic machine works. And with many of my clients, it's, I'll use this, I'll say, would you ever pour a milkshake in the gas tank of your car? What? No, I'd never do that. Would you ever give your dog a piece of chocolate? Oh my God, no, that would kill the dog. Well, then, do you honestly treat your car or your dog better than you treat your organic machine, your body?
It's so true. It is so true. And I think it's just a matter of people not thinking, right? Like we just first education and then just not, to me, it's mindfulness, right? Like just people are not stopping to think about what they are putting in their body every day. Oh, I'm rushing around. I don't have time. I have to grab this fast food, a couple times is not going to hurt me. And then before you know it, it's like you're having fast food every day. So
Exactly.
yeah, it's just that becoming more mindful and planning and exactly like you said, realizing that everything that you put in your mouth makes a difference, makes a huge difference, and treating yourself as well as you would treat your pet, which
Exactly.
we don't.
Yeah, no, it's true. Um, you know, I when I'm talking to my whole program actually is based on the pancreas. So my hypotheses and my research since 2008 has been around the pancreas. And I believe the pancreas is the gatekeeper of good health, poor health, weight gain, weight loss. And it's also the source of, the new buzzwords that you hear about, inflammation, hyperinsulinemia. And so I really do believe that non-communicable diseases that are referred to as NCDs, so that would be obesity, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance, polycystic ovarian syndrome, low testosterone, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, renal issues, and even some cancers stem from pancreatic abuse. And so there is a way, a foundation of eating to protect yourself. And as I go back to that statement before about being your own doctor first, because you know yourself. And a big part of it too is listening to your body. Your body speaks to you every day, whether you get undressed and you look at the mirror and you see your body and you take an assessment, you get on the scale, you see the number. All of those things are voices from the body, including blood glucose. And now with these new devices, the Libre Pro, Dexcom that you can put on your upper arm that's tracking your blood sugar, and then you scan it with your phone, it's making it so much easier to understand what your organic machine likes and doesn't like. As an example, I have clients that cardiac patients, let's say, their cardiologist will tell them to eat oatmeal for breakfast. Over 95% of my patients with cardiac issues, the worst thing that they could eat is oatmeal in the morning. Spikes their blood sugar.
It's just crazy, isn't it? I mean, I love that we're talking about this because I can honestly say, and I've been in, holistic medicine for over 20 years. And, before that, got my doctorate in exercise physiology. And my area was actually metabolism in terms of what I was studying. No one is talking about the pancreas.
I know. Tell me about it.
Right?
It's like, yeah, I get on my soapbox and everybody's like, oh my God, can somebody get the hook? Pull her off.
But it's fascinating to me because it's like, duh, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So how did you zero in on this?
Well, actually, one of my daughters was in college, and she was a theater major, and she started to gain weight, and then she developed like some acne, and it was like not making sense. And I started taking her to different doctors, endocrinologists, gynecologists, dermatologists, and I think they thought I had Munchausen's. Like I loved, having I want my kid to be sick or something. But anyway, they kept telling me that she gained the freshman 15. And I said, well, she's a junior in college. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, round and round, almost 2 years after she graduated from college, there was a new head of endocrinology at a major medical center in Chicago, where I'm from. And I took her to see this doctor. And the doctor examined her, came out to the waiting room, and said to me that because I had told the doctor that I thought she had polycystic ovarian syndrome. And all the other doctors said I was wrong. Anyway, this woman came out and said, "You're absolutely right." And I said, "Did you do an ultrasound of her ovaries?" And she said, "I didn't have to. It was classic. She's classic." And I said, "Oh my God, that's what I've been saying." And so I said, "What's the plan?" And she said, "Come on in," that my daughter had the plan. And I came in, and my daughter was holding 5 prescriptions. And I was just like, "What?" And she said, "She's going to be on 5 medications." And I said, "Oh no, that's not going to happen. I want to know the cause." And she said, "Well, this is how I treat this. This is how I treat PCOS." And I said, "Unless you can tell me the root cause, I'm not putting her on those 5 medications." So my daughter was very upset with me. We walked to the garage of the hospital complex, and she was like, "You're not a doctor, Mom. That was so embarrassing." And I said, "Jennifer," I said, "there is a reason for all this happening. And so we're going to address the root cause. And high insulin levels affect PCOS. So when you raise your blood sugar by eating the wrong foods, the wrong amount of foods, the wrong combination of foods, your pancreas is forced into action, and it starts pumping out insulin to bring that glucose down. It never meets up perfectly, so there's always more insulin that's needed, and it's a state called hyperinsulinemia. And that state of hyperinsulinemia suppresses the production of estrogen by the ovaries, and so there's a rise in androgens, the testosterones. And so it affects girls that way. They'll have cysts on their ovaries. It'll affect their periods. Some girls will have some facial hair, whatever, not all, but. And then now you see these young men who lack like hair on their arms, their legs. They look like sort of a human pincushion. They're, overweight. They have what people refer to as man boobs or whatever. And that's the same thing. When they eat the wrong foods, the wrong combination of foods, the wrong amount, they raise their blood glucose. The pancreas is called into action. Excess insulin reduces the production of testosterone, and then they have a rise in estrogens.
Fascinating. Fascinating. So you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore more with Candice Rosen. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. But before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com or at either of my 2 publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can learn more about Candice Rosen at www.candicerosenrn.com. That's CandiceRosenRN.com. So welcome back, Candice. We're just having fascinating discussion on basically how you kind of, I don't want to say stumbled into this, because it's when you're talking, it sounds like you intuitively or something kind of already knew that the pancreas was the key to a lot of these things that we were seeing in terms of weight gain. And we're talking a little bit about PCOS and just issues that can happen with men as well. So let's kind of go from there. Once you were telling us this story about what happened with your daughter and the 5 medications, which you obviously weren't doing. I would have done the same exact thing. Like,
I know you would. I know you would.
Let's find out, like, don't just give me a Band-Aid. I mean, let's find out why this is happening, what's causing this. So where did it go from there to lead you down this path of writing these books and, really honing in on the pancreas is the key?
Well, a couple of years after that, I had a health scare. And I also want to say that my mother um, was a diabetic, and my mother was overweight, and my mother ended up with all of the offshoot diseases of pancreatic abuse. She had diabetic retinopathy, so she lost her eyesight. She was on renal dialysis. And right before she passed away, she was going to have one of her legs amputated. If I had known then what I know now, things might have been different. But anyway, so getting back to me, so after I, whatever, created this program to help my daughter, I just figured, well, it would be just in use for PCOS patients. And then I had a health scare. So I went in for a routine gynecological exam. And when the doctor pressed on my lower right quadrant, it was pretty painful, but I didn't say anything. Then she told me to get dressed and come in her office. She said that she found what she thought was a large mass on my right ovary. One thing led to another, and the next day I'm in a gynecologic surgeon's office, and the diagnosis is stage 1 or stage 2 ovarian cancer. So by the end of the week, I was in the operating room being operated on. I had a total hysterectomy, and by the grace of God, it wasn't cancer. It was a bizarre tumor that had wrapped itself around the descending artery and my ureter from my right kidney to the bladder. And so 4 months after that, I'm not feeling well. I have no energy at all. And of course, my cholesterol is going up because I don't have the protective effects of the ovaries. And that's why many women experience heart disease when they go through menopause. Okay, so anyway, so I go to the doctor wants to see me, and he decides he's putting me on 4 medications. So
here we go again.
Yeah, Boniva for bone density, hormone replacement therapy, a statin drug for my cholesterol, and Effexor, which is an antidepressant. So I was like, why would I be on that? Well, you're probably depressed because of the hysterectomy and blah, blah, blah. I said, you know what? I was expecting to wake up from surgery and to hear what the plan was about radiation and chemotherapy. So I'm not just walking on the sunny side of the street, I'm dancing on the sunny side of the street. So I said, you know what, would you mind very much if I just followed a program that I created? Well, there were a group of them in there, and they were 3 doctors, and they were like looking at me like I was nuts. Anyway, I followed the program that I created for PCOS patients, and I was 36 pounds heavier than I am today. I've been on every single diet known to man, the cabbage soup diet, the liquid protein diet, Atkins, all of these different, and they were all like to lose 20 pounds. And then when I was finished, I, gained back the 20 plus 5. But anyway, following this program that I created, I lost the weight. I've never dieted again. It's a lifestyle. It's not a diet. My blood work is excellent. So check off the, inherited medical baggage. No. You might have a predisposition to insulin resistance. And then if you abuse yourself by eating incorrectly, it flips the switch and you get type 2 diabetes. But, food is medicine, as you well know, and your body has the ability to heal itself. It wants to survive. It wants to live. You just have to give it something to work with.
Yeah, I love that you say it's a lifestyle, not a diet, because that statement is so true. I mean, and everybody's just looking for, okay, what's the next quick fix? What's the next thing, right? That's going to, no, this is the diet that I'm going to lose weight on. What no one is I don't know if it's understanding or grasping is that all these diets are all meant to be temporary, right? Because no one's going to be able to stay on them long term. You're going to drink cabbage soup for the rest of your life, or
You're
well,
right.
right?
You're
There's no,
right.
you can't, like, because
Yeah.
why? Because it's cutting out typically most of them cut out some type of major food group. And so either it's just you end up getting bored of it, or it's you got other problems because you've got nutrient deficiency or whatnot. So why can't we start looking at it like, okay, this is how I'm going to build my life around the way that I eat, not this thing I'm going to do for 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, whatever, and then go back to eating whatever I want.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out a way, people, everyone, to not make it so what's the word I'm looking for? It's like everyone is so like miserable, I guess is the word. Like
Yeah.
they think eating healthy is misery, but it's not.
You're absolutely right. I kind of think of my program as precision nutrition. Your body tells you what it can and cannot handle. So my clients have to test their blood sugar, whether they're using, the device that you put on your upper arm or they're pricking their finger with a glucometer. They only do this for 2 to 3 months, and they get, an answer from their body. So they test themselves 90 minutes after they eat a meal or a snack, and the body either says thumbs up or thumbs down. So you get a pretty good picture after 2 months what your body can and cannot handle. And it's real simple. So then when you know what you can and what your organic machine can handle, you're not going to abuse it.
Right. But I think like I've worked with weight loss in the past, many years before I had the magazines. And one of the things that always kept coming up was, but can I have a piece of chocolate cake once in a while? Or can I have, a French fry once in a while? Like people think I have to give up everything that I love forever and I can never have it again. So I'm just curious, like what is your perspective on that? Do you think that over time we can train our bodies so we don't even crave that stuff anymore? Or do you think it's okay for people to be able to eat, a piece of cake at a birthday party once every, I don't know, once a year? What do you think?
Oh yeah, I have there's a calendar my clients follow. Um, Wednesdays and Fridays are, essentially vegan vegetarian days. 2 days out of the month, it's go wild days, so you can have what you want. But it's interesting how your taste buds change.
Mhm.
You know, I'll use myself as an example. I love creme brulee. I don't care where I went, whatever restaurant. If that was on the menu for dessert, I'm having it. And, when I changed the way I fuel my body, and happened to be at a restaurant and it was on the menu and it was one of my go wild days, and I was like, I'm going to have this. And when it came and I took the first mouthful, it was like almost like sickening as far as sweetness, because my body chemistry had changed.
Yep.
So, but do I have French fries? Yeah, I have French fries once a month, maybe sometimes twice a month. I don't believe in restricting, because then when you do that, people can't sustain it. They just can't.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's tough, and nobody wants to hear that out of the gate, right? Like you can never have this again. But I've had the same experiences as you, actually, in terms of what you exactly said, especially with sugary things. Like I just have lost, over the years, like just have lost all, you know, palate for that. Like it's just, yeah, you realize that the more you go without it, the less you crave it, the less you think about it. And when you finally do have it, like you said, it doesn't even taste good anymore. That was actually amazing to me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so sickeningly sweet. How could I ever eat that?
Right. And you know what the thing is, people don't understand, like they'll say, "Oh, I have cravings," or I was so hungry, I was starving. If you eat the wrong foods, like the wrong combination, like let's say you go to a Chinese restaurant and you're going to have protein. You're going to have chicken with rice, vegetables, whatever. Well, proper food combining, you would never have an animal protein with a starch like that, with a potato or with rice, because it's just the wrong combination and it will jack your blood sugar. So why do people get so hungry after they have a meal of Chinese food, with wontons and all this sort of stuff?
Exactly.
What
Yeah.
happens is you raise your
Exactly. Well, I'm going to stop you right there. We are going to answer that question when we come back because that is a great question. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today with Candice Rosen. She is an RN and clinical therapist. You can learn more about her at www.candicerosenrn.com. That's CandiceRosenRN.com. And before we broke, we were talking about just how you put food together can make a huge difference in terms of how your blood sugar reacts. So we were starting to get into the Chinese buffet.
Yeah, exactly. And about how people have cravings, or they'll say, "Oh, I'm so hungry. It's so hard for me because I was starving." Well, what happens is when you eat the wrong foods, you jack your blood sugar, it increases, and then your pancreas is called into action. It produces a ton of insulin. It never meets up perfectly. So you have the excess insulin coursing through your body, which then creates a state of hypoglycemia. So your blood sugar drops. When the blood sugar drops, that's when you get these cravings. That's when you want to eat and stuff your mouth with anything around. And then it becomes a vicious cycle. And so then you continually abuse your pancreas, you're pumping out insulin, then you've got unused fuel, the bad glucose. And then what happens? It gets stored in the fat cells, and then you start gaining weight.
Yeah. So important to know just how to, plan individual meals. Also, I think what no one's talking about is the amount of time you go between meals. I mean, I know some people that tell me they only eat twice a day. They get up and eat like breakfast at 10 or 11, and then they don't eat again till dinner time at 6. And I'm like, oh my God, do you know what's happening to your blood sugar? It's like
Exactly.
all over and that's why, then for dinner, you want to open up your refrigerator and eat everything in it. It's
It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, and as crazy as this sounds, so my doctorate's in exercise physiology, we had nutrition classes. They never once talked about any of this stuff. They never talked about how you should probably be eating every 3 to 4 hours to maintain your blood sugar. They never talked about, okay, you want a certain amount of carbohydrates, fats, proteins balanced at each meal. It just blows my mind.
No, you're absolutely right. Well, all you have to do is walk into a hospital and sit with a patient and see what they bring them up on the tray.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's like they're trying to kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, really. So, I wanted to talk about, you mentioned, when we were preparing for this about the 60 minutes obesity piece. So where Dr. Stanford talked about obesity as a brain disease, which
Mhm.
that was fascinating to me. So I'm sure our listeners want to know more too. What do you think? Is that true or what does that mean?
Yeah, I'm not going to dispute what she says, but I don't think that she provided a really good um, uh, um, explanation. That's what I'll say of what happens. So what she did was sort of take the individual out of the equation once again, which is what happens continually. Like, it's not your fault you were born that way. Well, it's not your fault, it's the way your brain operates. Well, that's not true. So she really didn't get into the discussion of leptin. And Diane, you know that leptin is a hormone manufactured in adipose tissue. Okay, so in fat cells. And it helps regulate energy balance by inhibiting hunger, but it can also affect weight gain. So when leptin is released in amounts proportional, let's say, to normal body weight, it reaches the brain and it binds with receptors. And this informs the body that it's reached its capacity. But because leptin is produced by fat cells, leptin levels tend to be higher in obese people than in people with a healthier weight height proportion.
Which puts them at even more of a disadvantage, right?
Exactly.
Mm.
So some overweight people may wonder, well, if my body makes more leptin because I'm fat, then I should have zero appetite, right? Well, unfortunately, the opposite appears to be the case. I mean, overweight people never feel full. They never feel satisfied. And well, sadly, with obesity also comes a resistance to leptin's effect. So it's almost like when I was talking before about insulin resistance. So there's leptin, resistance. So those high levels are wasted because your brain isn't getting the message, because it's not coming through. The message isn't coming through. So in layman's terms, the brain hasn't heard that you just ate dinner. It thinks you haven't eaten, or you haven't eaten enough. So this situation is referred to, like I said before, leptin resistance, insensitivity. So this situation appears to be linked to a deficiency in the leptin receptors. Okay, well, some scientists feel that this phenomenon is linked, actually, believe it or not, to insulin resistance, and that the association with hyperinsulinemia, too much insulin. So remember when I stated before about the pancreas being the gatekeeper of good health versus poor health, weight gain versus weight loss. Well, that's a connection. So this inability of insulin or leptin to initiate a healthy response really drives the production of more insulin and more weight gain. So I just feel that it's a cycle that can be broken if you start to be mindful about how you fuel your organic machine.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's simple changes that people can make, right? But it's like we said earlier, it's just taking a minute, I think, or pausing. Like, am I really hungry? Maybe I'm thirsty. Sometimes I think we get that confused.
Oh my God, you are, as my one daughter would say, spot on. You're absolutely correct. That is so true. So true. And the thing is, I worry so much though about children. We've got all these kids now that are dealing with obesity. You've got schools that don't have phys ed every day. Parents don't understand how to properly feed their child. And you've got 8, 9, 10-year-olds that are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes that was always referred to as adult onset diabetes. No child was diagnosed with adult onset diabetes. It was usually diagnosed in people that hit middle age, 50 and up.
Yeah, and even older than that. And I back in the day, we're talking many years ago, I think that was a diagnosis because people were losing muscle mass, not even that they were extremely overweight. But once you start losing muscle mass, then your insulin resistance, is off the chart, because we're not going to get into that whole physiology. But basically, that's why as people got older, they were all getting diagnosed with this, type 2 diabetes. Of course, yes, some people overweight, but a lot of times it was people. I remember, because that was part of my dissertation. And remember people being confused, like, I'm thin, how can I be diabetic? Well,
Right.
if you lose muscle mass, that's what controls the whole, that whole metabolic system, basically, or controls it better.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And then the other thing is, once you get a diagnosis like that, you've got 2 to 15 years for all the offshoot diseases that come: heart disease, renal issues, eye problems, circulatory issues. So then when you look at an 8, 9, or a 10-year-old, think about that 2 to 15-year window.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Mhm.
That is crazy. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's tough, but like we said, there's definitely simple changes. So what do you, let's say you have a new patient come to you. Um, what are some of the simple things that you would tell them or that you would tell anybody listening to this? Where do we start?
Well, first, when I said before about making Wednesdays and Fridays, vegan, vegetarian days, incorporating only 2 wild days per month, um, removing any, um, really cutting out sugar. Of course, that's an obvious, and that includes anything that's has artificial sugar, like where people think they're drinking a Diet Coke or a Diet Pepsi, that's okay. No, the body can recognize that just as if you were drinking the real thing. Um, I practice food combining. It's very, very important. So if you go out to dinner, and you can go out to restaurants, um, you're at wherever. Don't have a steak with a baked potato and the vegetable. Have the steak with the vegetable and a salad. Skip the baked potato. Chicken, not going to have it with rice. If you have a pasta, you're not going to have it with a meat sauce. It's going to be with a vegetarian sauce, a marinara sauce, an eggplant sauce, and a salad. For breakfast. Oh, here's another thing. You don't want to combine fruit with anything because it's acidic, and you've got alkaline and acidic. If you're going to, have I don't know, your cereal with fruit on top, with milk. No. And then I encourage my clients to cut down on dairy. It's unhealthy. So if you want to have a yogurt, you should have maybe coconut milk, whatever. There are different ways of getting probiotics. You don't necessarily have to get it through yogurt. We look at the rate of osteoporosis in this country. We consume a lot of dairy. When you eat yogurt, cheeses, and all that, your stomach, it gets into your gut. You have to buffer that because it's acidic. So where do you get the buffering agent? You get it from your bones. So you're actually stripping calcium from your bones when you think you're actually eating to help your bones.
It is amazing. That's a good one. I remember that thinking like, wait a minute, this isn't making any sense. We should not have any problems with people with, osteoporosis. So you're listening to the Dr. Diane Show. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be exploring more with Candice Rosen. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today with Candice Rosen. She's a nurse and clinical therapist. You can learn more about Candice at www.candicerosenrn.com. And you can learn more about me at www.drdianehayden.com, or either of my two lifestyle publications, Natural Nutmeg, which is www.naturalnutmeg.com, or Essential Naples, www.essentialnaples.com. So thanks again for being with us, Candice. We've been having some fascinating discussion. And the last thing we're going to talk about in our last segment, which is going to be near and dear to me, is a couple of things. One being, just the stress response on everything that we've been talking about, and also sabotage, like self-sabotage or friends and family sabotaging your efforts. So where do you want to go first? Which causes stress? So where do we go first?
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. Let's talk about sabotage.
Okay.
It is sad that it happens. So when I take on a new client, I ask them, how supportive is your family, or how supportive is your friendship circle? And they'll say, oh yeah, they want me to, lose weight. They want me to get healthy. And I have to tell you, that's not always true. Um, I've had various clients, actually, one, well, one stands out where she lost almost 100 pounds and she looked fabulous, but her husband didn't like it. And he did everything imaginable to sabotage her keeping that off, with enticing her with all sorts of treats, taking her out to restaurants, favorite restaurants that would be very difficult for her to navigate the menu. And he was frightened of losing her. And that was so sad.
Mm.
And then there was a young gal who was in college, and her friends were a couple of her friends that were heavier were envious that she was losing. One of her other friends said that she wasn't as funny as she used to be. And, just, you can't believe it. That you wouldn't
Yeah.
have the support, that somebody wouldn't say, wow, what are you doing? How can I do what you're doing? But
Right. Exactly. Why not join versus trying to, knock her down?
exactly.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, because I remember when I was working with weight loss surgery patients, that was part of, I had a job actually as a nutrition assistant to this weight loss surgery practice. And basically what my job was to make sure that they tried every diet before they could get approved for the surgery. Because as you know, it's so radical. And there's a part of me that doesn't agree with it at all. And then there's another part of me that's like, well, I think there are some people that is just the last resort. They're going to die if they don't do this. And
I
sometimes
agree with you.
end
Yeah,
up
you're
dying
absolutely
anyway.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I can tell you how many times that these people said to me, I mean, I'm supposed to be talking about nutrition. It ended up being like a psychotherapy session
Yeah.
because so many of them said to me like, well, I started this diet or I started this lifestyle change or whatever, but my husband was sabotaging me. And then the number of people that I would see actually post surgery to help with their nutrition after the surgery that told me they got divorced or their relationships broke up. I mean, it was astronomical, because that's what
Mhm.
happens. Like, someone is with you because of a certain way that you are, I guess. And it's hard when people change, like the other person, if they're not extremely secure and have done all their own work on themselves, they're not going to like that very much.
No. And it's
Yeah.
like, the thing is that so many people don't understand. It's not about the weight. It's about what the weight represents, either present or future poor health. Obesity is replaced tobacco use, right? As far as
Mhm.
cancer. Um, you know, so it's a very serious problem, not just in the United States, but worldwide. And I think that even when we were talking about sabotage, self-sabotage, where somebody feels like, oh, you know what? I won't be able to exercise. Why even try? Ooh, I lost 10 pounds, but I hit a plateau. It's not even worth it. I don't, you know, I won't be able to sustain this. Um, you know, they come up with 100 million excuses
Mhm.
why they can't continue. I can't afford healthy food. Healthy food, that's, a great dinner would be a baked sweet potato with some black beans and, like, let's say arugula, with lemon squeezed on the arugula. That's not expensive.
It's true.
You don't have to go shop at Whole Foods, but they'll come up with these excuses to sabotage their health and their well-being.
Yeah. I mean, even if you added up probably the number of times they're eating out, I don't care whether it's like a nice restaurant or a fast food restaurant or whatever it is, or the amount of times they're getting coffee. at Dunkin' Donuts or some Starbucks or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Add up all that money and use that to pay for your healthy food.
Yeah,
You'll still end up saving.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But a lot of people don't think about that.
Right.
And then, many of my clients, because of their weight and that, are unable to exercise, and ones that have to lose, more than 40 pounds. I don't like them, whatever, lifting weights or doing any of that. I'd rather have them walking. But it's interesting how, when you brought up stress before, that people can actually have a counter effect working out because of the stress. Like, they don't want to be working out, or they'll be at a yoga class and they'll see somebody next to them and they think that they're doing a better down dog than they are, and then they get stressed out, and then their body starts to release adrenaline and cortisol because that fight or flight, and then their muscles, their liver releases glycogen, sugar, into the bloodstream for fight or flight, and of course it's not being used up, so then it gets stored in the fat cells. So you're actually, if you're not happy about exercising, or not, that's not the exercise for you or whatever, that you can actually cause yourself to gain weight rather than lose. Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, it's more detrimental. And even as an exercise physiologist, I will tell you that I think losing weight is 90% nutrition and 10% exercise. And I would absolutely agree with you. Just recommending somebody get out and walk, just moving a little bit, is the best thing for them to do in the initial stages. I totally agree with you. Like, don't bother trying to go to a gym or a yoga studio or whatever. Just literally get out and walk a little bit. And that's going to make a huge difference. But it's really, the more important things, I think, are focusing on what you're eating and the mindfulness part. I mean, to me, everybody has sabotaging thoughts. I don't care whether, like, I've never had a weight issue, but I have self-sabotaging thoughts about other things. It could be my finances or my relationship or what, like, everyone has it in some area of their life. What has helped me immensely is just learning to be mindful, meditate. Even if I only have 5 minutes a day to meditate, you don't need hours, just 5 minutes of being quiet and kind of clearing your mind. And that just, it kind of flips a switch and gets you out of that negative spiral.
No, you're right. And in mindful, when you say that, that's so true. It's when, again, with the clients, I'll say, before you take a bite of something, ask yourself, are you protecting your pancreas, or are you abusing your pancreas? That mindfulness about what you're putting in your mouth. And I agree with you wholeheartedly about meditation. Even if you're at a stop sign or a stoplight, if you just do some deep breathing, just to relax yourself. You might not even realize that you're stressed or tense, but just to do that, so that it ends up being muscle memory, that you just constantly, not constantly, but many times a day, taking in a deep breath through your nose, holding it for 4 seconds or whatever, and then releasing it. And just that, is so important.
It is. It really is. So I want to thank you so much, Candice. This has been awesome information. I'm sure our listeners learned a lot and loved listening to you. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Next time, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I will see you back here next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.